Hi, folks. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that comes up very, very often in the comments section, and I hope everybody's really interested in. I'm sure they will be, judging by all the comments that I get. Normally, the way this comes up in the comments section is somebody gets very upset and very butthurt when in a video I say security guard. Say if you're working as a cop or a security guard, and they go, "Oh my goodness, don't call me a guard. Oh my God, you can't. We get so much disrespect out in the real world, and then you call us a guard, and I gotta deal with this cop calling us a guard on the internet, and that's not respectful, and blah, 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 blah." So that's what we're gonna talk about today. And every time they do that, if I have time, I go through the comments and I say, hey, let me explain. This is why I say that. You have to use some term, right? And then I explain kind of my philosophy on it. So instead of explaining my philosophy 30 times on it, we're going to talk about that today. Before we get into that, there's a couple of record-keeping things. Let's say some work that we have to get through. One is I'd like to thank Sharon. Sharon sent me a glazed coffee mug with my logo front and back, which is really cool, and a bunch of coffee, which is delicious. So I've been drinking that. I don't normally drink out of a glass mug in the car. That would be dangerous. But I brought it with today because we're doing the video. And also we have the giveaway for the TK18. So I've got all of the comments that people said I want that light in here. We're going to put one now. Now we'll dig in there a little bit. I had my kids ball all these up, so if the first one doesn't have a name on it, it's not on me. That's my kids. I had them cut them all out and do them for me. That's a good thing about your kids getting older. Alright, so TK18 drawing. Balled this one up good. So, Bob Cole. Bobkohl. Bob Cole. That's the winner. So, I'm going to comment back on that and get in contact with him. And then, Thorfire says they're going to send one of the lights out to him. So, there we have it. That's the drawing. I told you it wouldn't be 6 months this time. Now, although normally when I get that comment, it's somebody that's all angry that I say security guard, I recently got a message on Instagram, a private message on Instagram, from a person that has followed free field training for a long time, and I followed him for a long time since I got an Instagram, because I knew he followed me on here. His name is Josh Blankenship. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I put a link down to his Instagram in the description. Hopefully it's correct. If not, I'll fix it later. And he messaged me and said, "Hey Tommy, I got an opinion question for you. So different companies use different terms, and obviously the wannabes always use the term officer because it makes them seem like the real popo. And I've also heard a lot of people use the term guard who are not really in the industry at all." Now, Josh is a security guard, and he's done this for an awful long time. He works for like a legit security company that does like fairly high-end work. Makes good money at it. Do you think the term security officer or guard is more fitting? I think it depends on what your job actually entails. For example, if you just guard a post and your access control for a parking lot or monitor CCTV, I would consider that a security guard. However, if you are responding to emergency crimes in progress and assisting with medical emergencies and patrolling, much like how correctional officers, even though in some cases officers in the state in which they work, are still referred to as officers for much the same. Sorry for the wall of text. I'm just curious how you see it. So, understanding, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Everyone knows that's followed the channel for a while. If you're new, welcome. But if you follow the channel for a while, you know I'm a municipal police officer. I drive around a police car. I answer calls. Normally I have a trainee. In fact, I just got done with my first day of a new trainee in phase 2 of FTO. On the side, I do secondary employment working security. So I'm on both sides of this for an awful long time. As your normal person, as you yourself watching this, what would you think of me if I came on here every day or every week and refer to myself as special agent? Well, I mean, I'm an agent of the city, right? and I investigate crimes, and I make arrests, so I'm an agent. What do you think? What would you think of me? If I started calling myself that, would you not make fun of me? I get made fun of now for being a cop and where I work, especially now that people start looking me up. But does changing my title to something that sounds more important make me more or less likely to gain people's respect? The Illinois State Police have agents. They don't do like detective, they do agent. And guess who gets guess who gets made fun of when they refer to themselves as agents at police stations all over the state? You're a police detective. Don't refer to yourself as an agent. Come on. What is so bad about being a trooper or a cop or a detective? You got to make yourself sound more, more important than you are. And is that job really that unimportant? You're a detective for the state police. That's a pretty important job. It's nothing to scoff at, right? Like, why make yourself sound more important? See where I'm getting where? See where I'm getting with that? The railroad police, a lot of them have like special agent. The badges will say special agent because the railroads, they like to like flex with the idea that they're like a federal agency, even though most are just private entities that, they have jurisdiction through several states because of a federal law. We have federal jurisdiction. They call their guys special agents because of various legal reasons with calling yourself a police officer and how jurisdiction works. But none of them will tell you that if you ask them, at least not the smart ones. They're like, yeah, I'm a railroad cop. And what's wrong with being a railroad cop? What's wrong with being a cop? What's wrong with being a security guard? And I hear this all the time from people. They say, well, if you're just guarding a post, that's different than if you respond to calls. What about the guy that guards the where they produce money? What about the Treasury Police? I mean, they're a guard, right? Under that standard, they're not an officer. What about jail guards? That's another one he brings up. What about jail guards? What's the problem with being a jail guard? What's the problem with being a cop? These titles don't mean anything unless you ascribe value to them. As soon as we leave the room, here's how this works. As soon as we're not eye to eye with people, you're a guard, I'm a cop. The guy that guards the prison, he's a prison guard, or a turnkey, or a jailer, depending on what part of the country you're in generally. And the guy that you call to come to the bank after it's been robbed so you can push the paper off on them, that's a Fed. And as soon as we leave the room, that's what people call us. So you can fight it all you want, but you're a security guard. It's not changing. It's written in a statute in your state, security officer, that's how they had the statute written, it doesn't matter. As soon as you leave, people are going to call you a security guard. What you can change, and what will actually help you at work, though, is if you can raise the value of what you do and raise how well you do it, raise those standards across the board for your industry, regardless of what it is, and do your job properly in a way that earns people's respect. In which case, face to face, they'll call you sir or ma'am, depending on what you look like. If people are calling you sir or ma'am, doesn't matter what they call you when you leave the room or what your badge says or what your title is at work. Right? At the end of the day, that's what you're worried about. You're worried about respect. Let me tell you the best way to get it. Make fun of yourself straight to them. I go on calls, people, hey, listen. I'm just a short, fat cop. All right? I eat donuts, I drink coffee, occasionally hit somebody with a stick if they need it. All right? I'm here, I'm taking down your story, we're going to figure this out. Immediately puts them off because they got nothing. Take the wind out of their sails. They got nothing. Try it. Hey, listen, I'm just a security guard. I'm here to make sure nobody breaks anything, nobody gets hurt. We're probably going to turn this over to the police eventually, but let me just get your name. We'll get this process rolling, right? What's so hard about that? Make sure I didn't miss anything. Wrote some notes. about it. So we're going to take some comments and questions from people. We got 100 people watching right now, which is pretty good for 4 o'clock on a Thursday. We'll go through, see what everybody says, and we'll have a little discussion. Maybe you guys will change my mind. I doubt it. Maybe we'll change your mind. Hello from Western Washington. Hello. Get through all the hellos here. Brant Beckworth says, it's all about executive protection agent. See, that's when people get off the deep end. When you get too far off the deep end, people will start openly making fun of you. Guys that, like, people that legitimately work executive protection, buddy of mine, Thorpe, I've actually got videos with him sitting on Patreon right now, waiting for his channel to get up and running. Does a lot of, like, off-roading stuff. He was in the military for a long time, and he worked, like, legit executive protection. He didn't have a title. He was just associate number whatever, because it was his job to make sure he never had a discussion with anybody about anything, because he was bodyguard. Or he'd work an event, and he was just, that's one of our associates, wearing a suit. Why does he need a title? He doesn't need to impress people with a title. Dude's like 6'5", 250 pounds of, well, at the time, 6'5", 250 pounds of solid muscle, carrying a gun around. He knew what he was doing, and everybody knew it. So he didn't need a cool title. Savage Rookie says, security guards literally have no training and want so much respect, LMAO. Well, here's the thing. Not all of them do, and the better ones are the ones that, like Josh here. Josh's problem is he doesn't know where to draw that line. Should I tell people I'm a security officer? Should I be, like, making this a thing? Should the company be making this a thing? And when my boss asked me about it, should I be telling them, no, just put security on there? Or should we be putting security guard on there? Or is security officer really the standard that the industry is going to? But a lot of people, I had my 40 hours of mandatory armed security training in Illinois, and you will respect my authority, and get all angry on the internet because somebody said security guard. Listen, you've had 40 hours of training. I literally had more training when I worked for UPS on how to load a truck than you do about protecting property and life with a gun. That's insane. Like we've talked about before, there's a huge bottom of the industry, and there's a pretty large top to the industry if you look for it. But most of those jobs are like, you know somebody who knows somebody, you get offered the job, you don't go apply for it. Dessing Silly, sorry, I know I'm mispronouncing that, but Dessing Silly says, I'm out of school and can actually watch I'm out of school and can actually watch your stuff live for once. I'm on day shift now, so our schedules are going to align a little bit more until the end of the month. CJL Production says, hey Tommy, any recommendations on which handcuffs to use as a security guard? It's not going to matter in most places. If you're working loss prevention somewhere and you're going to have to conceal those handcuffs, a lot of people really like the plastic asp cuffs. It's one of the few like positive qualities of the plastic asp cuffs is that they're fairly cheap for an extraordinarily lightweight handcuff, and you put them in like a cargo pocket or a back pocket or something, and they don't stick out too much. If you have to conceal them, sometimes that's nice because they're lighter. I normally tell people just go to the uniform supply and get like Peerless or Smith & Wesson or Safariland, whatever chain metal handcuffs. And the nickel ones tend to look better longer, but they don't really seem to last any longer. So if you care what they look like and having easy maintenance, like you're not going to have a rust on the outside, just get a legit brand stainless steel or nickel handcuffs. You don't want the ones that are from some Chinese company you've never heard of before. And that's about it. Al Morican says, officers are elected to an official position. Cops and guards are not officers. Sheriffs are officers. No, that's not how that works. Officer simply means you hold some political office. Or you hold some office from an organization. So it's not an improper term. A security officer isn't, by English, an improper term. It's just not what's used in common language. So it doesn't make sense to call yourself that. Because people they're gonna snicker. Especially if you're the dude that has like investigator on the back patch and You got a Ford Focus with rust holes through the side of it, with a yellow blinky light on top, and like nothing on your belt or no belt. My favorite is the no belt. Like not no duty belt, just no belt. You're wearing jeans and a black t-shirt that says security on it. You're like, I'm a security officer. You're not an officer of anything because you don't have decision-making abilities for anything. I mean, you can be an officer of an organization, and clubs have officers. That term kind of gets thrown around, and that's not really what I'm getting into. Is whether this is a good proper English term or a good proper legal term, because in some states security guards are security officers. That's how they're written in statute. It doesn't matter. It matters what people are actually going to call you and whether that's conducive to you getting your job done or not. It says this from where dude was like, "You call me boy." I like it. Kyle123 says, so long story short, I'm cross-eyed, but when I have glasses on, it isn't cross and my vision is near perfect. You think I can still become an officer with this? I haven't the foggiest idea at all. I've never been into that. Hurricane Game 5621 says, where I work, the university security work under the university police department. Security wear a black and tan uniform while police wear a different color. Our security do a lot more than our PD, lol. Probably in terms of hours worked in the day, like doing a particular thing. A lot of places that have roving security patrols, security will do more because they're doing their premise checks. They're like checking buildings, opening doors, unlocking doors, doing lockouts, stuff like that. Around here, we have ESDA or civil defense, and they do a lot of that same stuff. They take a lot of pressure off the police officers. And what that allows is for the agency to use police officers for things that require a highly trained person with a gun to do, that have the arrest authority that's needed to be a police officer, and then to allow security or civil defense or ESDA or whoever else to do all of the other ancillary tasks that cops would have to do, but at a much lower rate. They can have a lot more manpower hours out there, having 4 or 5 security guards to maybe 1 or 2 police officers, depending upon their pay rates and what they're having to do. It makes good logical sense for a lot of agencies, a lot of schools, a lot of government agencies to hire security in addition to their police department, regardless of what they call it. Public Safety Network says, my work recently changed our title from public safety officers to campus safety guards, as we just got a newly formed police department. This didn't bother me at all. My pay and duties stayed the same. And that's the thing. If they change you to security guard, but your job stays the same and your pay stays the same, then what does it matter? If you're the campus public safety or campus safety guard, and you help somebody with a lockout, and they go, oh, thank you, sir, what does it matter? Does it matter what's written on your uniform? I would say no. Red State says, self-depreciation is golden. It is. It knocks down so many walls and barriers we put up between each other. That's why I love it. I do it all the time at work. All the time at work. It was better when I had a beard. It used to be like the short bearded cop. Just tell them that, like, it knocks those barriers down. You get people laughing, and then they're more amicable to doing what you want them to do. We've gone over this before. That's the name of the game, regardless of what public safety sector you're in. You might be able to just do what you tell them to do without having to force them. We don't want to force people to do stuff. That's bad business. Daniel says, awkward. FFT shaved off his beard. A few months later, my wife made me shave off my beard. That sucks, man. At least I got a good excuse with work. They literally legitimately made me do it. TSI Do 2008 says, unfortunately, several peace officers in California do not respect security guards. Well, is that really more of an issue with the police, or is it with issue with the security? I mean, if there was as large of a low end of the market with police officers as there are with security guards, being a police officer wouldn't mean anything either. And there used to be. There was a time when, oh, he's a cop. And we've raised standards significantly since 40 years ago when that was the case. 50 years ago when that was the case. Maybe it would help if you held each other to a slightly higher standard than not wearing a belt. You see somebody that's a security guard and they show up to work and they're not even wearing a belt. Maybe if that wasn't acceptable, police officers would feel a little bit more respect for the industry as a whole. Lucas Michael says, how do you become a detective? Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, then there is a video, how to become a detective, or CSI, or anything else. I think that's what I titled it, how to become a detective. I'll try to remember to put a link down in the description, but if not, you can Google it up, put in the YouTube description, free field training, how to be a detective. That explains it. Basically, you got to be a good patrol officer first in most places. Der HG Furschner says, hey, from Germany, it's 11:33 p.m. here. Oh, I'm glad I didn't start it any later in the day. Thanks for stopping in. Kyle Rittenhouse says, do you think it's stupid that Six Flags won't let security carry handcuffs? The last time I was there, they were wearing handcuffs, but it's been a very, very long time. I don't think it makes sense for anybody to have security and have them to not even have handcuffs. I don't get it. I think that would be more of like a concierge service. That's what I would call it. Why take on the liability and the insurance rates of calling all these people you employ security and then not giving them the very basic ability to detain somebody if they had to? At that point, you're just a concierge. You're telling people where the bathrooms are at, and you're taking notes on stuff. So, yes. I don't know. I don't know what their thinking on that is. Karen Whitlock says, how do you deal with having to enforce laws that you don't agree with? Everybody has something in their job that they don't like. Sometimes you can kind of get around those things by making them less distasteful. For instance, you're a janitor and you have to sweep the floor every night in the middle of the night when no one's there, because that's the only time you can clean floors in a public building effectively is the middle of the night, and you don't like doing this. So you put headphones in and you get yourself a cup of coffee, or you get a Slurpee or whatever, and you sweep the floors and you put your headphones in and you get through it, right? You make it a little less distasteful. Now, there are laws that I don't 100% agree with. For instance, where I'm at, we have a rule against kids playing basketball in the street, or even in some parts of their driveways. There's a bunch of requirements for the basketball hoops, right? So I go there and I have a few options. One is I could go there and be like, I'm going to seize your basketball hoop and take it and write the kid a ticket. Or I could go there and be like, hey guys, come on over here. Listen, somebody's complaining about your basketball hoop and the fact that you're playing in the road, but I got a better location for you. And this will involve me not having to take your basketball hoop. What do you think? And they're like, sure. Right, well, there's a park 2 blocks that way. There's, a church with big parking lot over there. There's this driveway, this abandoned house across the street. Do you want some help moving it? And then I'm enforcing that law. People can't play basketball on the road because it obstructs traffic. I don't like enforcing it because I want kids to play sports. That keeps them out of trouble. That's the whole idea. A bunch of 12-year-olds playing basketball, that's way better than climbing in somebody's window. So I make it less distasteful by enforcing it in a way that makes sense to me. And luckily, I have discretion that allows me to do that. Brian Vale says, can you be a cop on antidepressants asking for a friend? LOL. I'm pretty sure you can. I don't think that's a big issue. Now, whether you've been previously committed and you're not allowed to possess a firearm, that's different. And it's going to be different, in what country you're in. In the United States, if you can't possess a firearm, you can't be a cop really well. So that's kind of going to depend. I don't think just being on antidepressants, I don't think is a disqualifier, especially if you're already a cop and you go on antidepressants. Like, we want guys to get help if they're having problems. Garrett Razzie says, EP work is so boring, but it's good money. And you don't have to worry about what your title is because you're not wearing stuff that says what it is. You're just the guy in the suit. It's nice. It's good money. Very good money. Almost as good money as transporting jewels between jewelry stores. That's good money too. Eric Lopez Torres says, what about SCOPs? Is this supposed to be security cops? Hard pass on that, man. Go with the self-deprecation. Call yourself Rent-A-Cop. Hey, listen, man, I'm just a Rent-A-Cop. I just need to get this information down, make my boss happy. We'll give it to the real police when they get here. It'll smooth this whole process over a lot faster. If when they get here, I'm getting your information. You look like a sane, rational person. We'll all get out of here faster. You'll probably leave a whole lot happier when they get here, right? What's so hard about that? RWAC Gaming says, I'm an armed guard in the Woodlands, Texas, and it's quite rewarding. If you like your job, then it's not a bad job, especially if it pays your bills. Carlos Danger says, I'm a guard. I feel bad when kids thank me as an officer in front of a cop. Yeah, it's if somebody, like, I don't care what my title is that you're calling me, right? Like, if some kid's like, hi, officer, just wave back. You're helping a brother out. If they think you're a cop and you wave back, oh, hi, like the little kid, that's great. The cop waved at them. Don't burst their bubble. Let them have it. Evan Smith says, I spend my days and nights training guards so they can have enough professionalism to deserve to be called security officers. Well, that's good. I spend my days and nights training cops to have enough professionalism that they don't care if they're called a cop or flatfoot or a whole bunch of things I can't say on you. And by the time they're done, most of them really don't care anymore because they know it doesn't matter. But it's good to raise that standard, and I'm glad that that's what you're out there trying to do. Garrett Rizzi says, EP work is like babysitting children that can fire you whenever they want. I've only ever done it like very short-term bodyguarding for like insurance agents and stuff, and so they're not high-strung people. Like, hey, no, we don't want to drive there. In fact, just let me drive. Okay, they'd rather let me drive anyway. They've always been pretty nice to me. Kamikaze Kyer, I hope I'm saying that right, I'm sorry. Kamikaze Kyer says, can an unarmed security guard bring his personal batons and pepper spray? You can do anything. Whether the company allows it or your state laws allow it, that's between you, the company, and the state. Here in Illinois, people do it all the time. They go, well, I'm certified for this. Your agency, your security company or whatever, your security company or whatever doesn't have a policy for it. You might be getting yourself in a serious heap of trouble if you end up using those on somebody because you're not indemnified. We've talked about that before. Indemnity is huge, both in law enforcement and in security work. If you're following your company's policy and you use a baton on somebody, you're indemnified. They have to protect you from the legal ramifications of it. If you're within policy, same thing with police officers. If you just decide you're going to bring a baton to work, no indemnity. No indemnity. So be careful with that. Ian Brannon says, yeah, there are pretty well-trained security guards, at least from my experience, use of force training, handcuff training, on-the-job training. We are, for the most part, unarmed up here. Must be in Canada. Well, that's good. It's not tied to having a gun. That doesn't... That doesn't have anything to do with how good you are at your job. And a lot of people get really wrapped up in that gun. Like it's like it's so important. It's really not that important. Daniel Bolin Daniel Bodilo says, I was an armed guard for a few years and I worked executive protection stateside and overseas for a few years. I had a few years and I still believe I never had enough training. You can never have enough training. If you think you've had too much training, you're wrong. And you're probably fooling yourself. Ventura 496 BBC says, hello from Phalanx Tactical Security Group. We are guards and proud of it. We are doing what we can to bring our industry up one public contact at a time. Completely agree with everything you say. And I've referenced your company before on live streams. I've looked at them on some of their stuff they do online. They've kind of a pretty good social media presence, especially on Facebook. They seem pretty professional. They don't have guys like walking around with untucked shirts and high points on their hips. I see a lot around here. Good, solid professional uniforms. They get people that know what they're doing and what the plan is. They go out working together as a group to solve a problem. What a weird concept. T Saito 2008 says California requires 40 hours of training plus 8 hours every year. That is almost nothing. Bernardo Fernandez says, I, as a security guard, have seen guards who couldn't make it on the force and became security guards of the world wanting to look so much like a cop, never understood why. I don't know. Some people can't leave it alone. Like, hey, you weren't going to be a really good cop. Well, I'm going to go be a security guard. I'm going to try to look like a cop a lot. Not cool, man. Go be a truck driver. I'm like, maybe it's just not for you. There's nothing wrong with not being for you. Carlos Danger says companies label us guards as officers as a marketing ploy to get business. Well, yeah, of course they do. And that makes perfect sense, especially from their perspective. Right? Our highly professionally trained officers will protect your property and yada, 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 yada. I mean, I'd probably do the same thing if I owned a security company. Every security company website you go to says, other places just give you guards. We have officers. They're highly trained, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not every company because there's some company out there that's creating all of this. There's somebody out there that's creating all these problems. So obviously a large portion of them are lying about it. Ian Brannon says, question for you. How much of the topics you talk about here translate across the border, specifically in Canada or even other countries? Well, I've talked to police officers in Canada, France, Norway, Sweden, Germany, England, Russia, the Ukraine. There's a couple other ones. Some South American countries people have contacted me talking about they're surprised how similar the equipment and how police work works is all across the board. Even guys from the UK, they're like, we don't have guns here, but like so much of the stuff that you talk about is exactly the same here. And I'm sure a lot of it translates over. I'm sure a lot of it does because police work and security work and fire service, it's the same everywhere because the job is exactly the same. The laws are different, but the job you end up doing ends up being so similar that there's only, there's lots of ways to skin the cat. I talk about there's lots of different ways to do police work, but you come down to having to accomplish the same goals. And so the ways to do it that people end up coming up with are all very similar. Lots of stuff, and I'll tell you when it's like that is, hey, you got to check your local laws. That's the way it is in the United States. This is the way it is in Illinois. This is just the way it is right in the little region that I work in. But a lot of it, when I talk about handcuffs, you take those same handcuffs to Canada. It's the same thing. Connor Purdy says, my official title is healthcare officer. Usually we just refer to ourselves as security staff. Usually we get a decent amount of respect, especially from hospital staff. Hospital security runs the entire gambit. And I've seen hospital security that was just like contract security for a mall that got shoved into a hospital roll, and I've seen security for like Christ Hospital that from 30 feet away you look at them and you're like, is that a cop? Oh, no, that's the hospital. I know. I can see now. I see the badge. And you would never know. Just talking to them, that the professionalism is so much better. And some hospitals are really good with that, and some of them are really bad with that. So can't say across the board healthcare security is great, but if you're gonna meet somebody in the security field that's wearing a uniform and carrying around a gun and is very good at their job, chances are you are going to meet them at a hospital, because that's where people are likely to be and actually meet the security that are good at their job, that are doing that uniform guard thing. Obviously, there's examples of people that are that good that work in other industries, but normally people don't come in contact with them. Travis Sholnick says, what about being a mall cop? That's just being a security guard in a mall. We used to have mall police here in Illinois. Way back in the day, shopping malls had their own police. Doesn't work that way anymore. Probably for the best. Justin Davenport says, I work security at a prime federal contractor. Yeah, buddy. I don't care for the titles. I just say I'm a security, not a guard or an officer, just security. Keep it simple. As long as the paycheck clears, right? I agree completely. Jonathan Ray says, you just described Securitas guards I work with. I wish they were watching. Share the video with them. Texas Pond Hopper says, where do you usually buy your security belt stuff? All over the place. Wherever I can find it, wherever it's in stock, wherever I can get it all at once and ship it at once, so that way I only pay shipping once. Lots of times it comes down to the shipping on this stuff. Bernardo Fernandez says, can't stand the no belt jean wearing and tennis shoes on a guard. I agree. I think it looks stupid. Homero Mendoza says, I took your advice from a few videos ago with the question I asked you, so I decided to go local, and I just got accepted into my local academy. Thanks for all your help. You are very welcome. Wookiee War FPS Old School First Person Shooter. That's a long name. Says, I'm an armed guard for Salt Lake City with CBI. I have to wear a duty belt, and it just adds to the professional image. I think it does too. As long as you got stuff on it, like a couple things, I think a duty belt's a good way to go. But I do insist that you need to wear a belt, like to hold your pants up type of belt. Law Enforcement Explains says, I was watching a YouTube video where a cop was clearing a house by himself. What's your thought about that tactic? I covered this. What is the name of the video? I covered this in a YouTube video that I did. I think it was called House Clearing 101 or Finding Burglars. I'll try to link it down in the description. But I covered a video on exactly why you want to search a building in a group and why it's a really bad idea to search it alone if you think that there's somebody inside. Go check it out. Joshua Klein says, opinion on inside the shirt versus outside body armor. I prefer outside body armor. We get a huge fluctuation in weather here in the Chicagoland area, and my carrier for police work at work is really expensive, and I have to put my body armor in it, but it keeps me cool. It's got a mesh liner on the inside of it, and it holds my armor and all my stuff, and I put it on, so I put my belt on it and the armor on, and I'm pretty good to go. And it's fantastic not to have to load stuff in pockets, to be able to carry stuff on the vest instead of on your belt. And it's also fantastic to be able to take the thing off. I go in the station to write a report, I can take it off. And so when it's hot out, like right now it's 79 degrees, that's really hot for me. Kind of fat. It's pretty hot for me. And so it's nice to be able to take that vest off after, say, a foot pursuit and it's hot out, come in the station, do the report, take the vest off, cool down a lot faster. McBeat1 says bail bondsmen are the worst about that. You mean if you put a plate carrier on with a taser pulse and rifle mags and you have a badge of a patch up front that says agent and a badge that is clearly designed to look like a U.S. Marshals badge but says bail enforcement agent, you don't think that looks professional? Come on. What's wrong with that? What could go wrong? Now everybody's bagging on the bail enforcement agents. Public Safety Network says the most egregious violation I have seen is bail enforcement agents in my state who have almost zero regulations. They run around with agent on their back, dressed up similar to ICE agents. What's wrong with calling yourself a bail bondsman? Get a patch that says bail bondsman. Put it on your back. What's so terrible about that job? It's kind of a cool job. They got all sorts of YouTube channels where people put the videos up of them being a bail bondsman and going out and chasing people. What's wrong with that? Everybody loves that. Why shy away from that title? Ta Ali says, had a guy in our ER shoot up some drugs. All I had to say was, dude, I'm not a cop. I'm just trying to make sure you don't die in my waiting area. Too much paperwork for minimum wage. Work like a charm. It does. This a little bit of self-deprecating humor pops right in. People love it. Blue Unicorn 9000 says, I'm a correctional officer. Does it pay any less if you're a prison guard? I bet not. I mean, who are you really impressing in the prison anyway? Right? Is there anyone in there that you're really worried about impressing? Like, that's going to respect you more or less depending on what title they put on your badge? I don't think so. I think it's just something that we do to ourselves. And it's just only make your life more miserable. Der HG Furnace Staller. Okay, we're going to do one gun question and that's going to be it. Ever shot an HK pistol? What does it feel like in comparison with a Glock pistol? I just know the feeling of my HK duty pistol and wanted to know if the Glock is better, to be honest. Shoot them both. For most people, it's not going to make a lick of difference. If you're going to shoot hundreds of thousands of rounds through it, an HK might work better for you. If you want a gun that's slightly lighter, that's trimmer, most Glocks are going to be better. I wouldn't get an HK VP9. They're not great. But like the USPs and stuff, they're awesome guns. P30s, awesome guns. Very well built. For most people, they're never going to meet the limitations of what that gun can do, and they're never going to meet the limitations of what a Glock can do. You get a 9mm Glock or 9mm H&K USP, you're never going to wear it out. Most people, it's well beyond their capability. You wouldn't be able to afford to shoot enough times to wear it out. So it doesn't matter. Shoot them both, get the one you like. Joseph Hirschmeyer says, so here's a question you might not get a lot. Do you think hookup apps will kill prostitution? I think it'll kill a certain segment of prostitution. Probably not all of it. The low end of the prostitution market, like at truck stops and stuff, is not going anywhere. But the apps, it's just taking kind of the place of Craigslist, and technology just is going to float the high end of the market around. It's not going to really go away. It's the oldest profession. One of the oldest professions. Soldier, hooker. But it's not, I don't think it's really going to change the low end of the market what most people think about when they think about prostitution. Red State says, I was once told by a security person, dogs are called guards, people are called officers. Do you think that's valid? No. I think that's just somebody that's worried about not looking as cool. And if you're worried about not looking cool, and if being a security guard isn't cool enough for you, get another job. If you don't like it, get another job. Don't worry, or make the job better for you, but don't worry about the title. The title is unimportant. Kamkaze Kyer donated $5 to the Donut Fund. Thank you. And he says, can an unarmed security guard bring personal weapons like a mace gun and baton? Like I said, it depends on your state laws. Here in Illinois, they can, But the problem is you have to have the certification, and if you are not operating within the policy of the company that hires you, you're not indemnified. So if you pepper spray someone, it's on you, and the company doesn't have to protect you civilly. Inferno says, "Hey Tommy, I am looking to start in security here soon. Not sure where to look. Armed versus unarmed. What do you think is a good starting point? Thanks." Doesn't matter. Why don't you look for what price point you want? How much money you want to make, how close it is to your house, whether you have to buy uniforms or not. That's a huge part of the price structure of it. Whether you get benefits with the job. If you work for hospital security, even pretty low-end hospital security, if it's in-house security, they normally have pretty good benefits. I'd be willing to take less money for the better benefits. If there's bus service directly between your house and work, that can save you a lot of money and having to have a car. There's lots of things to take into account long before you take into account whether they have a gun or not. Because I've seen very professional security companies that were unarmed and very unprofessional security companies that were armed. It's a job. Look for the job that's going to fit you best, not the gear that you're going to use at it, because the gear is unimportant. If I come to work tomorrow and we get a new chief of police and he's like, "Here's your skinny barrel 38 caliber revolver," I'm going to moan and groan, and I'm like, come on. But you know what? The next day I'm going to go into work. You're like, all right, well, I can still do the job with this. I'm not going to be happy about it, but it is what it is. It settles everything else that I need. I'm not worried about as much about the equipment as I am about the job itself. That's where you should look at it from. Connor Purdy says, "My local PD has a lot of respect for us where I work. Clean white uniform shirts, navy pants. Most of us buy 511 and polished black boots. Duty belts are needed as well, but not required." The one thing I don't understand about security companies is their obsession with white shirts. Just about any color but white is going to stay looking nice longer. Unless you have a uniform supply company, it becomes very hard to keep those white uniform shirts white. And the only thing worse than having a wacky color like yellow is having white when it starts turning yellow because of pit stains and stuff. But as long as they look clean, that's great. Serenity Jade says, "One of my friends calls himself Imitation Bacon." I like it. I like it. Rich Boy says, "Hi, I subscribe. Thanks for stopping by. Go watch some other videos, man. I think you'll like them. If you like this, there's all sorts of live streams on here." Will says, "Free field training, is it okay for people to shake cops' hands?" Like, lots of times you're going to find that a cop will be like, "Oh, you know what? I got to go wash." It's probably in your best interest if they say that, but I have no problem shaking people's hands. I don't see any issue with that. Ryan Wetley says, "A lot of states legally define the officer versus guard as a licensing determination." I don't care. That's the legal mumbo jumbo of it. Doesn't matter to me. As soon as you leave the room, you're a security guard. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what licensure you have. You're a security guard. As soon as you leave the room, people are talking about you. You're a security guard. So embrace it. Like, states can make whatever laws they want. It doesn't change the public. Not one bit. Connor Purdy says, "We interact with the local PD quite a bit, as we frequently make citizens arrests with physical takedowns and get a good amount of respect from PD. I work with some loss prevention companies, like Macy's, for instance. Very, very good loss prevention. And they get a lot of respect from us. And they get down, they fight with people. They're willing to put the work in to get that guy in custody. And we respect them for that. They're good at their job. At the end of the day, if you're good at your job, you're good at your job. Doesn't matter what they call you." Dylan Torkelson says, "Any advice for a new officer headed to FTO?" Every cop has a different way of doing it. If you're going to an agency that's pretty good, that has field training, that's going to send you to different officers, as they should, learn something from each one. They're going to show you a bunch of different ways to do the job. Learn something from each one. I tell people all the time, this channel is not the be-all and end-all of police work. If you think that I am the model cop, you're wrong. That's not me. I am one guy doing one job, one particular way, and I share it with you. so that you have something to jump off from when you get into it, so you have some understanding of how police work works. This is not the only way to do it. And that I hate when people come to the and say, like, that's not how the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center does to do. They say blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, of course they do. Because they're not a municipal cop in Southside Chicago. It's like, of course they're going to have a different way to do it. That's fine. And they can, and that's great. And the fact that there's all these different ways to do it means there's all these different products and different ideas, and you can pick the one that works best for you. So when you go to field training, listen to those cops that are talking to you and pick the best of what they tell you and integrate it into the way you do police work. And bring donuts the first day. At least enough for every person on that shift to have one. And don't bring any of those crappy, like, nut donuts. All chocolate and glazed, so that way everybody's happy. Eric Lopez Torres says, I'm an armed guard and I only carry the gun because it pays more. If it pays more, it pays more. Like I said, that's about the job, not about the gun. None of your business says, I'm currently at work as security guard. Kind of upset I missed most of this. LOL. It'll be up. The stream will be up and you can watch it more later. Don't worry about it. And it might end up being a podcast later, so you might be able to catch it over on freefieldtrainingpodcast.com. Probably much better edited on there. Protocol 77 says, I'm a security guard here in Canada, in Quebec, and here we need a 40 to 60 hours training and course by an approved company training and the card by the Office of Private Security. That's nothing. That's almost no hours. It's almost no amount of time of training. I mean, especially if it's armed. Well, if it's in Canada, it's probably not armed, but that's almost nothing. I went to a handcuffing class last year that was 40 hours, just teaching a couple of techniques for handcuffing. Tier Talk Corrections 1 says, correctional officers get called guard all the time and it's insulting. People have no idea what we do in New Jersey. Corrections are law enforcement and have the title of police officer. That's great. Does it pay you less? I get called insulting things all the time, and it just doesn't bother me. It just doesn't. People curse my name all day at work, and just someone calling me cop or flatfoot or whatever, it really... Here, we have our court security. They actually prefer to be called court security, which is weird. If you call them bailiff, they get very upset. This is some terrible thing they get called. What's wrong with being a jail guard? Is there anything wrong with it? I don't see what the problem is. Especially because most of the people that are trying to say it as an insult are not doing jobs that are as good as being a jail guard. Or jailer. Or turnkey. Does it matter? You make more than that guy. What do you care? Wookiee War FPS Old School First Person Shooter says, is there any distinct difference between armed security officers' qualifications and police firearm qualifications? By law in some states, no. By law in some states, yes. In Indiana, there are basically no standards. In Illinois, the minimum standard is the same, but most police departments hold their officers to a higher standard. The minimum standard in Illinois is a joke, and that's the minimum that an agency can require, but most of them require more. And as far as, like, the training standards are significantly higher for police officers everywhere that I'm aware of. Airsoft Aviator says, I am a CEO of my own security firm now, and my staff have 200 plus hours of training. That's great. I think that's about what we're required to have in a year, of, like, between in-service trainings. Evan Smith says, by the way, I use many of your videos as training aids. Always have enjoyed your down-to-earth approach to training. I'm glad you like it. Byron Heinth says, here in Bloomington, Minnesota, there's a mall police division, coolest group of guys. I mean, that it all depends on what company you work for, who you're working for. I know some people that are like, I hate being a cop, I hate this police department, I can't wait to get into something else, and other people that love their jobs like me. So a lot of it depends on the job that you have, not what the title is. Kamikaze Kyer donated $5 to the Donut Fund. Thank you. And he says, do you think mental health can stop someone from being an armed guard? It can if they're not allowed to carry a handgun. So if you can't get the licensure to be an armed guard, then you can't do it. And almost every state that I'm aware of requires some form of licensure to work as a security guard. Like something. Even if it's just you have to have a carry permit to work as an armed guard. So if you can't get that because you're restricted from owning a firearm under federal law, then you can't be a security guard. James Hudson says, is it true that all security guards are repressed, miserable wannabe cops that couldn't make it in the police academy? True or false? No. That's not true. And there's a huge difference between someone that wants to be a cop and someone that's a wannabe, right? I know guys that were security guards at the mall and are now cops, and really good cops. And incidentally, they were pretty good security guards back in the day. They wanted to be cops. They weren't out trying to be cops. They weren't pretending to be cops. They were trying to be very good security guards, so they would have very good references for when they want to be a cop. Huge difference in those two sports. Hector Munoz says, I do armed security at marijuana grow farms and dispensaries. They got us like a SWAT team and all the gear. Yeah, except it's probably pretty much always hot out, and it's probably a pain to walk around in all of it. You have fun with that. All right, Liberty Prime donated $5 to the Donut Fund. Thank you, Liberty Prime. He says, I work corporate security for G4S. They don't let us carry weapons or cuffs, but they make sure we are as well-trained and professional as we can be. That's good. If that works for you, that's awesome. I have a hard time with security not carrying handcuffs. That seems a little weird to me. But if you're comfortable with that in the environment, or if you've got enough people that you can just hold a dude down if you have to, then God bless. Tier Talk says, it's about public perspective, brother. It is about getting respect, and it is about getting the recognition corrections deserves. Here's the thing, though. Is arguing about what the title you want to be called is getting your respect or losing your respect? You want to gain respect from the public? Tell them about the things that you do. Videotape the things that you do. Show them the things that you do. I don't think a lot of people had any idea what a cell extraction was like and how dangerous it was until correctional institutions started videotaping them and then releasing those videotapes when they had a lawsuit and somebody was showing them. Like, this is the video that we shot video of this cell extraction to show what we were doing. I don't think a lot of people understood what went on in prison until they were seeing videos of the things actually happening. And the other thing is, and I would keep this in mind, that people who are bad-mouthing you are not necessarily the majority of the people out there. Any cop that has ever been inside a prison and had to see what you do has a whole bunch of respect for what you do. I would not want to do it. I would not want to work corrections. I've been in Cook County Jail. I've been to prisons before. I see the crap they have to deal with. Literally crap, like smeared, they have to deal with. I wouldn't want to do it. So I have a lot of respect for them. But does that have to change what we call each other? If I tell my friends, or I tell people on the channel all the time, hey, what about going into corrections? Dude, being a jail guard can be a very, very good job. Is that making you sound better? Is that showing you more or less respect because I say guard? And I say being a jail guard is a good job. That some people get into it thinking they're going to get into law enforcement. They end up being very good at it and liking it and loving it, and they make a career out of it. How is that bad? I think you're listening to a small minority of people who are very vocal because they don't like you for whatever reason. Most of them are probably convicted felons that spent time on the other side of the bars from you or got cell extracted, and they're very vocal about it. The police have the same thing. Don't let it get under your skin. Be proud of the work that you do. Show people the work that you do. Talk about the things that you have to do on your job. And more people are going to respect you, and then it won't matter what they call you. Little Ant DMV says, can you give security supervisor advice? I just got promotion to security supervisor. Just like being a boss at any other job. You treat your people fairly, and you make sure that they're taken care of as best they can, but then you insist that they then take care of the job that you're doing. If you back them up, as long as they back up what you're supposed to be getting done there, everybody will walk away happy. Tier Talk says, title is very important. Is the title that brings respect to the profession. I think it is the profession that brings respect to the title. Think about some titles. How awesome does SEAL sound? Take what you know about Navy SEALs away, and you say, he's a SEAL. Doesn't sound cool at all. What makes that title is the people that are doing the job and are awesome. They're not called the Door Kicker 5000s. They're called but everybody loves them because they're good at their job and everyone knows it. You could call them the U.S. Navy cat pukes, and everybody would be like, I want to be a cat puke. Stephen Matthews says, the look does matter. Looking good is confidence and command presence. Security has terrible uniforms. Not all of them. A lot of places are very, very cheap. It's like that everywhere. But you can get good security uniforms. Nothing stops you from going from a police supply and getting the same $90 pair of blower pants that I wear. Nothing stops you from going and getting true spec uniform pants and wearing those. Or 511 uniform pants and wearing those. Nothing stops you from doing that. 511 True Spec Blower, they all make really good uniform pants. Nothing stops you from buying them. They say you have to wear blue pants and a light blue shirt. Nothing stops you from going to the True Spec website and getting dark blue pants and a light blue shirt and looking really put together. Boilermaker67 says, all security officers employed by my office, state office building, are known by their first name. All professional and courteous, first names embroidered on their golf shirts. It's a smart way to do it. Eric Tower says, unfortunately, I was told by my security director that I'm not allowed to wear my Safe Life concealed armor under my uniform. What can I do about this? Do they also have a policy against wearing pink underwear? How are they going to know? If you size your shirt right and get, the lower level Safe Life defense armor, they'll make you a level 2 vest. If you're having a hard time concealing level 3A, they'll make you a level 2 vest. Doesn't save you a lot of money, but it's a lot thinner, it's easier to conceal, but what does it matter to them if it's not concealed? That's so stupid. Kevin Harwood says, I wish my company would give us training for use of non-deadly force post most of our company only carries deadly force. I see this with a lot of security companies. They only carry handguns, which is really weird. I I know why they do it, but I don't agree with it. They're charging based upon whether you're carrying a gun or not. They say, "Oh, armed guard's this much, unarmed guard this much." Oh, well, you just gotta have a gun. They're just gonna be armed. There you go. Carry any gun you want as long as we get our money. Low end of the market. Red State says, in my state, they're trying to give security officers arrest powers like in New York. What's your thoughts? It ends up being a mishmash because no matter what states end up doing with it, unless they're going to put an electronic fingerprint machine at the station for the security or have them drop people off right at the jail, it doesn't change anything. The cops still got to agree that this person should go to jail. So what does it matter? I mean, legislative stuff, that's an issue for the legislators. If it doesn't change how you interact, what does it matter? Public Safety Network says, do you think TACMED should be integrated into security? I took an 8-hour TACMED course put on by Flitek yesterday, and it was very informative, and I think any first responder should take. Thoughts? It's great as long as it's in addition to all the other stuff you're supposed to be trained on. Can't just do that. It's a great addition to anyone, for anyone. Anyone. If you're a truck driver, you should take a TACMED class because someone could get their leg crushed and you're the one that's there that's able to save their life. Inferno says, random question. Been to Valparaiso, Indiana? Pretty sure it's close to you. I really love Industrial Revolution. And Valparaiso. Rami Amur says, hey, what do you think about company police departments? I got a video on that called Private Police. Look it up. Nice long video. You'll love it. Or you'll hate it. Lots of people hate it. Doesn't matter. It's basically talking about that. Aaron Hudson says, if you had to start all over again, would you still be a local cop? Yep. Charles Stonebridge says, in the UK, bouncers are officially called door supervisors. How's that for a title? What do they tell the doors to do? That's one of those. I think that was a legislative thing. I heard about that in the UK, where they originally had just security and you could work anything, and they started sectioning it off, so you had to have specific training for specific things. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but the titles thing is a little weird. Stephen Matthew says, do you think all law enforcement will eventually get load-bearing vests to save officers' backs and carry gear easier? I know a lot don't because of military look, but they have so many health benefits. Well, a black vest with molly webbing on it that carries stuff it's not military. I don't know of any military that uses a black vest with molly webbing on it. Maybe somewhere in Central Africa there's somebody using black molly webbing vests, but most industrialized nations are using some sort of camouflage at this point. And black vests that police use don't hide really well in night vision. Hi, Tom. Stefan Byron says, "Hi, Tommy. Love the videos. My question is in regards to the freelance private security. I work for record labels as their head of security. Do you know if your guard card carries over to other states? States generally issue security licenses separately, unless they have some sort of agreement. I don't believe that that's the case anywhere. If somebody knows, chime in. But if you're licensed, say in Illinois, it doesn't carry over in Indiana. You have to get separately licensed there. There are some examples where that's not exactly the case. The railroad police, for instance, the feds say that if you're the police in any one state and you're the railroad police in any one state, then you're the police on the property of your employer in any state that you have railroad in, and then the state can give you additional powers and yada 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 yada. And if you're a private railroad police, then you're technically security in some states, but other states you're the police, but you have to be treated like the police in the other states where you're technically security because of this federal law, and it's really convoluted. But for most people, if you're licensed in Illinois, you're not a security. You can't just go work security in Indiana. You have to get a separate licensure there, whatever that is, or Wisconsin or Minnesota or whatever. Blue Jay Loyal put $5 in the donut fund. Thank you, Blue Jay Loyal. He says, "Why did you pick local PD over county or state?" You ready for a truth bomb? They were the first ones to a paycheck, and I needed to get out of my dad's house. And I ended up loving it, so I moved. That's it. That's all it is. It's a job. What the title is doesn't matter. I've said many times on here before, and I will say it one more time for everybody that's not listening before. If tomorrow someone offered me $125,000 a year to sweep floors, the day after tomorrow, my next live stream would be about the intricacies of sweeping floors. Because I don't care. It's a job. I love my job, but it is a job. And at the end of the day, it's about providing for my family. David Buchanan says, "Too many people are worried about titles. Take that ego energy and turn it towards training. Being trained up is what is going to save your life and the life of others. Training equals professional." Thank you, David. Couldn't have said it better myself. Stephen Matthews says, "In California, some cities are very opposed to load-bearing vests because they look intimidating. Departments like San Francisco and others have been outspoken about this." Whatever, that's their issue. They're way over there. They don't affect me at all. Agencies over here are deciding, hey, maybe it's better that we not have to pay out a whole bunch of money for somebody hurting themselves when they're 40 years old because they've got back problems because we made them put all this stuff on their belt and then piled more and more and more and more stuff onto them as this technology has gotten more and more and more and our requirements have increased. If San Francisco or San Diego or whoever wants to pay people to sit at home because they got hurt early on in their career because they keep piling junk on them to carry around and not giving them the ability to carry it safely, that's their problem. Public Safety Network says in most states, even if you work for a federal contractor, you generally still need to get a security license along with any other licenses to carry lethal and less lethal. I don't think that's entirely true. I think the feds, they operate in a different realm. Like if you work federal contract security, you don't necessarily have to get a license in the state, but a lot of people do just because it's easier than dealing with explaining why you don't have it. Like a license in the state of Illinois is a couple $100, and if you're working a federal contract security gig, it's just easier to get the license than to deal with it. Connor Purdy says, "Do you have any favorite on-duty snack besides donuts?" Oranges, apples, bananas, and protein powder. Nick Klein says, just got hired with my local PD. Any tips for academic aspect of the academy? Study habits. Read, study hard, listen to the instructors, all the same stuff you do in school. Charles Stonebridge says, my favorite piece of equipment at work is my body-worn video camera. De-escalates way better than a team of guys with shields and handcuffs. You've all seen my radio microphone for work, and we have taken to pointing and be like, hey, just so you know, all this is being recorded, and point the microphone. People don't know what body cameras look like or that they're not integrated into the microphone, and it's all of a sudden, lots of times people are like, all the craziness and the screaming stops, and people start talking like normal human beings again, which is nice. Efiel says, why are you in the passenger seat? I'm not. This is the driver's seat. You're watching a mirror image because it's through my phone and we're streaming it. This is the driver's seat. Here. See the steering wheel? I'm not in the UK. That's why it looks like I'm in the passenger seat, but I'm in the driver's seat. Connor Purdy says, protein powder and pre-workout is rampant at work. Yeah. All right. And that's it. We met the end of the stream. And we're only at 1 hour and 16 minutes, so I know YouTube's going to freak out about being too long, but what are you going to do? I want to talk with all you guys. Thank you to Sharon, again, for my coffee cup. And to Josh for giving me a comment to talk about today. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Congratulations, Bob Cole, on winning the TK18. Hopefully, Thorfire actually comes through and ships it out to you. And until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other.